Ethan was only 7 years old when he stood on a stranger's porch, clutching a hand-drawn sign that read, "Please marry my mom, she's all I have left." His small hands trembled, his eyes, too big for his face, filled with something far beyond his years. It was raining, hard, not the kind of rain that dances on rooftops, but the kind that weighs you down, soaking through clothes and bone. The man who opened the door, Luke Harris, had just lost his job. His world, once ambitious and loud, had turned quiet and uncertain. Divorce had taken his wife, a layoff his confidence. He was the last person expecting to be someone's miracle that day. Luke blinked at the boy. "What did you say?" Ethan held up the sign again, his chin trembling. "Please, you seem nice. My mom cries a lot when she thinks I'm asleep. I thought maybe you could help." Luke didn't answer. He just knelt down eye level with the boy. His front lawn, once trimmed and proper, was wild with weeds. Life had slipped through the cracks lately, but something about Ethan, the rawness of him, the quiet courage, cut through the fog in Luke's own head. "I don't even know your name," Luke said softly. "Ethan, my mom's name is Claire. She's trying really hard. But I think she's lonely. I thought if someone nice could love her, maybe we could be okay again." Luke should have called someone. A neighbor, the police, anyone, but something deep in his gut told him that wasn't the answer. Instead, he said, "Where's your mom now?" Ethan's tiny hand reached out and grabbed his. "I'll show you." A Claire Thompson was folding laundry in their small, two-bedroom rental when the door opened and her son stepped in, trailing a stranger behind him. She gasped, dropping a stack of shirts. "Ethan, what are you? Who is this?" Ethan beamed. "Mom, this is Luke. He might marry you?" Her face went pale. "Than," she cried. "What are you talking about?" Ethan turned to Luke, suddenly unsure. "You said you'd come." Luke raised both hands awkwardly. "I didn't agree to anything. I thought maybe you could use some help." Claire looked exhausted. There were lines on her face that weren't there a year ago. She wore the same cardigan in every photo on the fridge. But what struck Luke most was her eyes, guarded, like a door that had been shut too many times. "I'm so sorry," she said, pulling Ethan close. "He's been going through a lot." Her husband, Ethan's father, had died of cancer just 6 months earlier. Claire had picked up extra shifts as a home care nurse. No family nearby. Barely surviving. Luke didn't leave. Instead, he stayed for tea. They talked. Slowly, over the next weeks, he came back. To help fix the leaky faucet. To walk their dog Buddy. To help Ethan with his math homework. There was no proposal, no instant love story. Just dinners that felt warmer. Laughter that came a little easier. A woman who remembered how to smile. A boy who started humming to himself again. Then came Thanksgiving. Luke invited them both to his place, a modest home, but warm with the smell of roast turkey and cinnamon. There were candles on the table, mismatched chairs pulled together. Claire brought sweet potato casserole. Ethan wore a bodie too big for his collar. Midway through dinner, Luke handed Ethan a small envelope. The boy opened it. Inside was a crayon drawing of the three of them, Luke, Claire, and Ethan, holding hands. "I was never very good at art," Luke said with a soft grin, "but I was hoping you'd let me keep trying." The Claire covered her mouth. Her eyes filled, and for the first time in a long time, they weren't tears of pain. Are you asking me to? I'm asking if I can be part of your family," Luke said, voice shaking. "Not to replace anyone. Just to be here. If you'll have me." Ethan jumped into his arms before Claire could answer. "Yes!" She didn't speak at first. Just nodded over and over, as the boy wrapped them both in a hug. It wasn't a perfect story. There were hard days and therapy appointments, and moments where the weight of grief still crept in. But there was also healing. And love, not the dramatic, movie kind, but the real patient, steady kind that builds over burnt pancakes and bedtime stories. And in the quietest moments, Claire would often find that old sign Ethan had made, tucked in the back of his closet. She never threw it away. Because somehow, in one act of innocent hope, her son had given her the one thing she thought she'd lost forever. A second chance. That winter, snow fell early, soft and thick, blanketing their little town in silence. Claire stood by the window watching Ethan and Luke build a lopsided snowman in the yard. She held a mug of tea, both hands wrapped around it, the steam curling up like a slow exhale. Luke was trying to lift the snowman's middle section, and Ethan, too small to help, was giving instructions like a foreman. Their laughter echoed through the yard, echoing inside her chest. It wasn't just joy she felt, it was safety. Something she hadn't known in a long time. Later that night, Ethan knocked on her bedroom door. "Mom," he whispered, peeking in. "Can I sleep in your bed tonight?" Claire opened the covers, wordlessly. He crawled in and curled up beside her like he used to when he was smaller. After a few minutes of quiet breathing, he whispered, "Do you think Daddy would like Luke?" Claire's breath caught. She stared at the ceiling for a long time before answering. "I think he'd be grateful someone kind loves you as much as he did." Ethan didn't say anything after that. He just tucked himself closer, and within moments, his breathing slowed into sleep. A week later, Claire found Luke on the back porch, fixing the broken screen door with tools that once belonged to her late husband. She watched him for a moment before stepping outside. You don't have to keep doing all this, she said gently. Luke didn't stop working. I want to. Not because I feel sorry. Not because Ethan asked me to. I want to. Because being with you too. It makes me feel whole again. Claire looked down. It's scary. Letting someone in again. I know, he said. It's scary for me too. And maybe that was the turning point. Not a grand declaration, not a dramatic kiss, but that simple admission. That fear and love often lived in the same room, and courage was just choosing to stay anyway. Spring came slowly. Buds formed on the trees. Ethan's school counselor sent home notes saying how much more engaged he was, how he smiled more. One night, Luke came home with a folder and placed it on the table. What's this? Claire asked. An adoption information packet, he said. Not today, not tomorrow, but someday if we decide. I want Ethan to know I'm here for the long run. Claire opened the folder, touched by the gesture. But what moved her more was the note Luke had tucked inside. You don't have to marry me. You don't have to promise anything. But I'd still choose you both, every time. She didn't cry. She smiled. Some families are made from blood. Others are made from choice, from healing, from tiny brave moments like a boy with a crayon sign and a man who answered the door anyway. And their story, quiet, steady, full of second chances, kept unfolding, one loving day at a time. Summer brought long evenings and warm breezes. The little family, still finding their rhythm, started settling into something that felt a lot like peace. Luke taught Ethan how to ride a bike in the cold D-sack, running beside him down the pavement until the boy wobbled off on his own, squealing with joy. Claire watched from the porch, her hands pressed over her heart. One Saturday morning, they went to the farmer's market together. Ethan raced between stalls, marveling at the homemade soaps and baskets of berries. Luke carried a cloth bag overflowing with vegetables they didn't really need, but Claire didn't mind. She liked the way people smiled at them now, like they belonged. Like no one could tell this wasn't how it had always been. Later that day, they stopped by the cemetery. Ethan held a bouquet of bluebells in one hand, his other tucked tightly into Claire's. Luke stayed a step back, letting them have space. Claire knelt beside the headstone, ran her fingers over the engraved name. Hey, love, she whispered. We're doing okay. Better than okay, actually. Ethan knelt beside her, laying the flowers down. I still miss him, he said quietly. Claire nodded. So do I. Then something unexpected happened. Ethan turned and looked at Luke, then reached out and took his hand. I think he'd like you, he said. You're not like him, but you're good too. Luke didn't say anything. He just gave the boy's hand a gentle squeeze. That moment, simple and unassuming, stitched something invisible between them, a thread made of trust. By August, the three of them had a new weekend tradition: pancake Sundays. Luke made the batter, Claire played music on her old Bluetooth speaker, and Ethan insisted on being in charge of toppings. One Sunday, as Ethan added a mountain of whipped cream to his stack, he suddenly looked up and said, You know, I think this is what happy feels like. Claire froze, spatula mid-air. Luke paused too, and they both looked at him. Like before, I didn't know what it was. But this is it, right? Neither adult tried to explain it, they just nodded, because it was imperfect, unplanned, but undeniably full of love. School started again, and for the first time in 2 years, Ethan didn't cry on the first day. He walked in with his head high, his lunch packed with notes from both Claire and Luke, one reminding him to be brave, the other promising pancakes when he got home. The days began folding into each other, ordinary, steady, and good. And one night, as the wind rustled through the trees outside and Claire turned off the living room lights, she caught her reflection in the dark window. Behind her was Luke, reading to Ethan on the couch, the boy's head resting on his shoulder. The image hit her hard. How much they'd survived, how far they'd come. She didn't speak, didn't move, just stood there letting it all sink in. The grief, the healing, the hope. They weren't just surviving anymore, they were living together. That fall, the leaves came down in bursts of color, fiery reds, golds, and copper browns that painted the streets like a memory unfolding. Claire, Luke, and Ethan started collecting them on walks, pressing the prettiest ones into a scrapbook they'd started together. Each page held more than leaves. It held bits of laughter, ticket stubs, handwritten notes, drawings, even one with "Best Day Ever" scrawled in Ethan's handwriting from a trip to the zoo. It was on one of those walks, late afternoon, just cool enough for sweaters, that Luke slowed his pace. Claire and Ethan were a few steps ahead, tossing pebbles into the creek. He reached into his pocket, fingers brushing something small and warm. No spotlight, no grand crowd, just the quiet crunch of leaves underfoot, the smell of pine and cinnamon in the air, and the two people he now called home standing in the glow of golden hour. When he caught up, he knelt down, not on one knee, but both eye level with Ethan first. I need your permission, Luke said gently. Ethan's eyes went wide. For what? Luke looked up at Claire, whose breath caught in her throat. I want to ask your mom to marry me, but only if you say yes. Ethan didn't hesitate. He nodded so hard his hair bounced. You already feel like mine. Claire blinked back tears, her hand rising to her mouth as Luke stood and turned to her. He didn't offer a ring just yet. He offered his hand. No promises of perfect, he said, voice steady. Just promises to try. To love you through it all, you and him. Forever, if you'll let me. The moment hung there soft, simple, and full of everything. Claire nodded, her voice too thick for words. She took his hand. And Ethan right then and there started clapping and jumping and shouting, yes! Say yes! That counts, right? That counts. They laughed through tears. There was still healing ahead. There always would be. But now it was shared, every burden halved, every joy doubled. And somewhere in a dusty old drawer, Claire quietly slipped Ethan's crayon sign into a keepsake box. Right next to a new page in the scrapbook that simply read, she said yes. A little kindness can turn someone's whole day around. Be the reason someone believes in good people. Kindness doesn't cost a thing, but it means everything. In a world where you can be anything, be kind. You never know what someone is going through. Be gentle with your words.